It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. After yesterday's lengthy conversation surrounding the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we decided to bring Pro Football Hall of Fame wide receiver Chris Carter onto the show with us today. No, seriously though, our Chris Carter joining the show, Locked On Steelers, Post Gazette. You guys know him. How we doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, fellas. It's Friday. We're enjoying a nice day out.
Hall of Fame wide receiver, noted car thief, Chris Carter.
Car thief. I'm stealing Kenny Pickett's car to get the Steelers playbook back.
When you stole that car, did you happen to stop by the iconic Pittsburgh brand Sheetz to get gas in that vehicle, or was it full on gas or halfway? Did you have to stop at any point?
It was halfway full of gas. I stopped in and I got me a big, like one of their big gulps, like those big, huge buckets that you can get of Mountain Dew. That's what I did at Sheetz.
All right, there we go. Oddly enough, we are going to bring that into the conversation. Pirates' new partnership with Sheetz. They got a new jersey patch on the side of their jerseys, the sleeve of their jerseys, with Sheetz sponsoring that. We're going to talk about the Steelers, potentially, how much you guys would hate that if that were to happen. Before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But yeah, let's start with a little bit of news. Jacob Copeland, Steelers signed him to a 1-year deal. What is this, like his third stint? Now, there were 2 different times last year that he was on the roster. Back for a third time. Is the third time the charm? Does Jacob Copeland stick this time on the roster?
No.
Yeah, not betting on it. I mean,
this is why they got rid of Denzel Mims. They had to get Jacob Copeland back in house.
I mean, look, I don't really understand. I mean, Jacob Copeland's fine. I vaguely remember him being at practice last year. I don't mind taking a chance on him. I didn't think Denzel Mims was very good. So, like, whatever, spin the wheel, but not likely to move the needle for me.
Yeah, I look at this. This is just another, hey, we thought this guy could be an interesting camp body. Bring him in. He won't be on the final roster. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, yeah, I think Jacob. I think there's a lot of times that these moves made. There's small reasons why we often don't find them out unless someone develops. But we also don't look too hard at them because when you know certain guys, like you read Jacob Copeland and you see what the Steelers are trying to do a wide receiver, and I mean he would have to have the most amazing training camp of all time, and then he would still probably just be the 5th wide receiver if that.
Yeah, I mean he's realistically fighting for a shot on the practice squad. I mean, which maybe he's some good straight line speed. Maybe he could return some kicks. I don't know. I'm probably looking for something that isn't there. But I turning over the 90th guy on the 90-man roster don't mean too much to me.
I've talked a lot about the timing of when these things happen, like with Denzel Mims and Trenton Thompson, and now this. Does it surprise you at all that we haven't seen them target somebody from the UFL yet to this point?
A little bit, but like I wrote about that, those UFL guys, and we talked about the other day, and it's a lot of second time around guys. Like if you're looking for the best of the UFL, honestly, it's a lot of people we've seen here in Pittsburgh already. So I don't know, if guys like Tyler Vaughn, Hakeem Butler, Carlos Davis.
You said that name. You said the name Hakeem Butler. You about to start a whole war on Twitter again.
Anthony McFarland, like all those guys have been here. I don't know how excited they are to ride the merry-go-round again. Yeah, I don't know. That there are some guys out like, and then you always wonder too. Like you see. Yeah, some guys are really good football players that don't get chances for other reasons that maybe like I don't know because I'm not deeply embedded in the UFL, but that maybe the NFL teams know where this guy's an idiot or a jerk or whatever, bad citizen, I don't bring him in. So I can see some of those being reasons, but I'm a little surprised that they haven't signed at least somebody. Most of the teams have, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's still a lot of things that they're focusing on right now as far as actually building the guys that they have. I don't know if the Steelers. I think there's always this huge speculation. Everyone's going to look at at the end of the year, oh, they're like, what about this random guy? Because they're always trying to find the diamond in the rough. And like, if you find that one diamond in the rough, you're like, oh, I'm such a genius because I found that player. But the thing is that a lot of these players, they are retreads. There's guys who have had their shot, didn't make it, and now they're sent back down. And again, like once in a while it works out. That's what Kurt Warner was, right? Like that's what James Harrison was, when you so like it's not that it's impossible, but it's just like, for every few hundred of those, there's a James Harrison or a Kurt Warner. But like there's plenty of football athletes, and I think now more than ever that we can publicly see because of leagues like the UFL and because of social media, and we're seeing more of these things. But like how many other players like James Harrison and like Kurt Warner were of their time that we just weren't aware about because this was the media wasn't like it was back then. So I think that's why it's fun to think about, but in reality, I'd say 199 times out of 200, you're not going to hit there.
I have a question. This wasn't necessarily on here, but it kind of popped in my mind, and I'm curious to get you two perspectives on this as well as people in the comments. But one, are you like really dialed into the UFL? Is it something that you pay attention to? If you do, is it actually from like an entertainment standpoint, and you feel like you have to just to keep an eye from like a Steelers perspective? And also, like, now that I feel like the UFL has kind of just realized their role, not trying to compete with the NFL, but more so just be a launching pad for players to get back into it. Like, do you think that it has a bit better chance for success because of them having a more defined role and embracing that?
Honestly, I feel like I paid less attention to it this year than I did last year. I don't really know why that is. I feel like the timing is a little like weird, where they started like basically before the draft. I don't know. I pay attention. I pay enough attention to it to kind of have an idea of what's going on. I know generally, like, which former Steelers players and which of our local guys, our Pitt guys, are on, which roster, where I know coaches, things like that. But I'm not like watching it on a week in and week out basis. My off-season weekends are precious, and while I will say I'll certainly put on the NBA Finals or the U.S. Open, or going to spend a whole week watching the Olympics here coming up, usually find something better to do than watch the UFL on a general off-season weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Alan and Zach, I think we're all in the same spot. Like, we spent so much time working around football and the NFL, and then if you're college, like I like right now, like I am looking up highlights of high school basketball players that Jeff Capel's going to be talking to for his 2025 and 2026 classes right now. I mean, I'm trying to keep track of who Pitt's bringing in for that. So it's just like when you do stuff like that, and then when you cover the NFL, when you do things like that, and you also have your own interests, it's tough to make time for certain things, and the UFL kind of just falls way down on that. Like in my book right now, like the WNBA, I'll check out one of their games before I check out the UFL, and that's not to slight people who play in the UFL, but it's just like, what ties do I have to that? Like, one, there's no Pittsburgh teams. There's no thing there for me to like personally tune in. Like, oh, let's see how the Pittsburgh team's doing. And also like, if I think the other thing is if I had like a personal friend, like the person that I knew outside of work who was playing in there, I might check it out for them. I might like support them in that. But like, at the end of the day, and I think there's always that sports fatigue that everyone goes through at times, where it's just like, you know what? Sometimes it's nice to step away from sports and, watch your favorite show or go to a festival. Like, that's what I'm trying to do right now. Like, I'm trying to hang out with my fiance. I'm trying to, have good times, go to some concerts, go to some shows, and like do things that aren't football. Because come fall, like that's all I'm doing. Like that's all we're at training camp. We're at Steelers training camp, Pitt training camp. Then the season starts up. Then Saturday covering the game, Sunday covering the game. Monday is Pat Narduzzi. Tuesdays Mike Tomlin. Wednesdays everyone's practicing. Thursdays there's all sorts of stuff that happens. And then high school football has happened. So like this is a nice time for me to get away from it. And the UFL, that's probably the most fine thing for me to miss.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to get my mind back to the old ground and pound mindset of football. But like, because the game of football is so much is predicated on quarterback play now, and there's not even enough good quarterbacks to fill out the entire NFL, let alone a second league. Like, I don't know. I haven't found the entertainment value there. Even going back to when it was the two separate as the USFL and the XFL, and now as the UFL, still like I can't sit there and watch a full game at the very least. So I don't know. It's just not for me. I'm not into the spring leagues, never have been. So I was curious to get your perspectives on that. The second thing that I mentioned, though, do you think that there is sustainability there now, just using itself as kind of like a launching pad for people to either get to the NFL or get a second or third shot in the NFL?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I look at this, Alan, and I see, and Zach, I see that like there's a market for this. Like there's people tuning in for it. And I think it's also good for football because you are getting people second and third chances to get back into the league or to just play the sport that they played their whole life and they want to be able to do something with it. So like I think that there's certainly things there. Now the question will be, TV deals. How does that work? How does the money work there? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much if like the three of us all tune into every game, but what matters is how much money gets generated from this, and the people who are calling the shots and running this thing, do they still end up making a profit off of this? Because if they don't, then they're not doing this. But if they are making a profit off of it, that could be something there. I also think it's in the NFL's best interest to have stuff like this, to kind of like, to kind of keep, make football, help it grow in different areas. I think more football is better for the NFL in general, because I think that they could use, just other ways for people to find to get into the game. And there might be people, there's like, for example, right now, there's like a lot of people that I know that they're not diehard sports fans, but they're kind of like pushed back by like the huge brands of the NFL. So they're like, I'm not so excited about that. So they'll want to support something that's not as popular, and they want to, like, cause it's like their own thing, and they're not diving into a huge fan base that's already established and has all these people. And it's kind of like their own thing. I think it's one of the things that people really enjoy about like the River Hounds in Pittsburgh. And not to say that there aren't people who just enjoy the River Hounds for them and soccer and things like that, but I think it's refreshing to people who aren't like diehard sports fans. So like, you know what, this is kind of fun. I'm not going into this and investing $500 in 2 tickets and then having to deal with the drunk crazy people and then dealing with all this stuff and then the media timeouts. I think that's part of where the UFL can be for the NFL, is it can do all these things the NFL just can't do.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I mentioned I wanted to dive into the advertisement aspect of this. We've seen the Penguins now have advertisements on their uniforms, the Pirates now with sheets on their sleeve. Again, this is another thing that I want the people in the audience to give us their opinion on. But what would it look like if the Steelers took on a sponsor and had that on their uniforms? First off, like, placement would be interesting to me, and we can get perspectives on that. But like, man, I would be curious to see what the backlash would be if we were to go down that path.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of these in general. I don't really like them. I don't like the way they look. And I think it's like not to get, too like philosophical here, but like Jerry Seinfeld said it very well. We cheer for laundry, right? And I think when you like, that's really like, If the Mets right now traded their entire 25-man roster to the Yankees for their entire 25-man roster, all the Mets fans are still going to root for the Mets, and all the Yankees fans are still going to root for the Yankees.
Yes.
Okay. Like, even though they just traded all their players, the uniform is a big part of what your connection to the team is. And it's not so much that I hate the idea of advertising; it's the transient nature of it. Like Like in Japan, there are baseball teams that have sponsorships, but I mean, you've been the same name for 80, 100 years. Like, and
right.
So it's like, I don't know. It cheapens it to me a little bit when you're, oh, we're Sheets this year, but next year maybe we'll be, I don't know, Heinz, or maybe we'll be PPG. I don't know, whatever. Like, I just think it kind of takes away something from the fact that when you see somebody putting on a Steelers jersey, it looks basically the same as it has for 50 years. I mean, when they wear their throwbacks, it's exactly the same as it has been for 50 years. I mean, you go see Roman Wilson running around wearing 10, and it's like, this is almost the exact thing that Cordell Stewart was wearing in 2002. So like, I think you lose a little bit of that with these advertising. I understand why the teams do it. Obviously, they want the money, and it helps when you're talking about small market teams in uncapped leagues. Certainly, the Pirates probably need to do it, but I really don't like the way it looks, and I would really hate the way it would look on a Steelers uniform. Like when you're talking about something like that, where it's I got the Sheets patch is not going to bother me when I watch the Pirates play, but go watch a Yankees game and see how they screwed up the pinstripes. Like, it's awful. I would feel the same way about a patch on a Steelers uniform.
Was there? What was the thing that they wore? It was like legendary. Like it was like right around the time of like the Batman movie that they were like all in.
From Thomas Tull's farm.
Called.
Yeah, I can't some of that. It was on their practice jersey. Yeah, they also had another one. Comcast sponsored their practice jersey for a while too.
Yeah. Okay. So like that was what I thought about this, and I feel like it's also the thing is that like these leagues are doing this, and these teams are doing this because they're trying to bring in revenue. And it's just like yeah, I get it, but I also think like when you're in the NFL and you're one of the crown jewels like the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're kind of positioned where you got to do whatever you want, and it's just about what do you value? Do you value the classic feel, or do you value just going after every dollar that you can? And I think that we've seen with the Steelers, they've been more about classic things. They want to have the things that kind of resonate with the past. They want to kind of have traditions and things like that. It's why the Steelers haven't updated their helmet. They got a logo on one side. It was from a complete error, but they're like, oh, that's unique. That's cool. And that has never been changed and never will be changed so long as the Roonies run it. So I think it's fine for all the other leagues. Like, it's not something that I like am too excited about, but I'm also like, because at first when I saw this was happening for like NBA teams and then other leagues and stuff like this, I was like, oh, this is terrible. You mean I'm gonna have to look at a product on the name of their jerseys? Like, this is gonna make me so. And then I didn't care because I was like, oh, this doesn't impact anything as far as my watching experience for things that I enjoy with sports. So for me, I feel like, do I want to see it? No, because I think this, like you said, Alan, the Steelers jersey is fine as it is, as NFL jerseys are fine as it is. But when it comes to this whole conversation, I also feel like if they did it, I think there would be an uproar for about a month or a week, maybe less, maybe just 2 days. And then as soon as, George Pickens does a toe tap touchdown grab to win a game with that jersey on that patch, people will be like, oh, that's actually pretty cool.
As somebody that is literally just about how it looks visually more than anything else, Alan made some great points there about, like you're going to lose its feeling and sentiment if you're just changing sponsors all the time. As somebody that just about the look, I think the Penguins look stupid with theirs. Looking at it right now with the Pirates, I don't think that it's going to like it's so small and just on the sleeve. So we'll see if it's expanded beyond that. But like as of now, it doesn't look like it's going to be that bad. And it's also pretty small with the NBA logos. I think it just looks awful in the NHL to me more than the other leagues. If it were to expand into the NFL, I don't know. We'll see what that would look like. But
okay, what would be more controversial, bringing back the bumblebees or adding the logo?
Oh God. Okay. Well, okay, if you're bringing back the bumblebees, can you at least not bring them back with the pants? The jerseys themselves
pants are the worst part of the bumblebees.
It has to be the whole thing.
Two things are really bad about the bumblebees are the tan pants and the single-digit numbers look awful. The double-digit numbers look a lot better because there's a lot less stripe going on. Like the single-digit numbers look real bad.
I just say that because I just remember
I like the bumblebees.
See, that's the thing. People like the shirts, but you can't do the shirts without the pants because that's what made them so bad. And like that to me, it was a package deal. Like
with the regular gold pants, they wouldn't look so bad.
I agree. They would look better with that.
What about black?
Maybe. I don't know. I think the gold pants would look better than the black, but maybe. I don't know. Either one would be better than the tan. That was awful.
I'll never forget I was in law school when they were making that announcement, and I was sitting and I saw it there. The Steelers are about to announce their new throwback jerseys, and I just knew it was the block letters. I'm like, they did the color, the black and gold. Now it's about to be block letters, and it's about to be, life is gonna be good again, man. And then I'm sitting there in the cafeteria area of the law school in University of Pittsburgh, and I'm like, okay, all right, 4 o'clock, and it's Isaac Redmond's the guy. Okay, what's this? What in the world is this? Who designed that? Like, what? Why would you do that? And I was just like, well, they're like, and then I saw people like at first people were like, this is dumb, but like anything else, at first when people say something's dumb, people are like, you know what? This is genius. This is art, and that's what and now all of a sudden it's iconic.
Yeah,
I always like.
I mean, so many people, did all, but my opinion is based off the entirety of the uniform because of the pants. If it was just the jerseys being brought back with a different pant color, I could get behind it.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's where I stand on that. And again, as is with every topic that we talk about, I want opinions on this because there's a lot of people that always bash me about not wanting to bring back the Bumblebees because, again, I'm thinking more so about the idea of bringing the pants back as well. If you want the Bumblebees back, let us know in the comments. We got, by the way, way off. I mentioned this question from Hayden Bishop, and I thought that he was from a different country. I thought this was one of our many international fans. That is not the case. He is from Lafayette, Indiana. So, way over there across the pond in Lafayette, Indiana. Comes Hayden Bishop's question from yesterday's YouTube video. If you want to be part of the conversation, be sure to comment on this video. He said, I don't understand revamping the O-line, building a smash mouth offense, and then letting your workhorse back walk, especially with such a big question mark at quarterback. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a lot yesterday about Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and what we think the Steelers are doing at running back, but I think like you're kind of missing the point there. Like the idea is to build the offensive line so it doesn't matter who plays running back. That's the concept that they're looking for here. They want to build if you make the offensive line good enough, the running back doesn't matter that much, which is why running backs are being devalued around the NFL. This is one of the big reasons is that they need those other pieces to be successful a lot of the time. And if you don't have those, it doesn't really matter how good the running back you have is. He's not going to succeed. I wrote about it today at SteelersNow.com. Go look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who in many ways have been the inspiration for the Steelers rebuild, and especially considering Andy Weidl's connections there. They were first in the league in rushing. They had Miles Sanders. He was like 5.5 yards per carry in 2021. They were fifth in the league in rushing, and he was again very good in 2022. Last year, they let him walk. He signed to Carolina. He had a 3.9 yards per carry, lost his starting job 6 games in. It looks like a horrendous mistake of a contract, right? They traded for DeAndre Swift. He almost doubled his career high in rushing yards the next year because he went to Philadelphia. I mean, like, it's just about the scheme in the offensive line. The running backs are all very similar. Not to say that, like, you can just throw any 2 guys out there, but as long as you have pretty decently talented running backs, which are not that hard to find, the line is the important part. That's where you got to spend the draft capital. That's where you got to spend the money to keep them around after you draft them. The running back, that piece doesn't matter that much.
See, I disagree. I think that running back does matter. I think that there are some that don't matter. I think like Miles Sanders is like, yeah, you can let that guy walk. But I think that like go back and I say this all the time. If you go back and Le'Veon Bell shows up in the 2018 season, that Steelers team not only makes the playoffs, but they're a real threat in the playoffs with the way that he played. You go back and you look at, I think they had 7 fumbles from their running backs in that season, and a lot of them came in crucial situations. You think of Stephen Ridley in the Saints game. You think of James Conner in some rough spots. Le'Veon Bell fumbled 7 times in his entire career with the Steelers. And if you just take away one of those key fumbles, I think the Steelers – all they needed to win was one more game, and they would have been in the playoffs that year. And I think the 2018 Steelers, while they wouldn't have been elite, with that offense, with Le'Veon Bell, and if Antonio Brown, if they're in the playoffs, maybe Antonio Brown doesn't go crazy at the end. Maybe he keeps it together for a little bit longer, and then you get the killer bees in the playoffs. And we didn't get to see the killer bees in the playoffs being healthy too much. So I think that to go back down that road, I'm saying that I do think there are some running backs that do really make a difference. And I think that with a really good offensive line like the Steelers are trying to develop right now, I think Najee Harris can be one of those guys. And I think that there are certainly they could go out and find another one, but they also could go out and completely whiff because they were churning at running back. Like James Conner, I think if he had stayed healthy in Pittsburgh, they could have signed him to a deal and they might not have ever drafted Najee Harris, but they were trying to just replicate something at running back and they were failing. And that's why they was like, you know what, just go get Najee Harris. Don't have to worry about it. And where he hasn't put up superstar numbers, he has done very well with almost nothing. Bad offensive line play, rookie Kendrick Green, no quarterback, terrible offensive scheme, all of that. And he's still gotten over 1,000 every single year. And he had over 1,600 yards in his first year all purpose. I just think that I hear you, Alan, in saying that, like, look, this team could probably go out, like if they could play through Najee's last year, this year, draft another running back in the second or third round next year, and they might get more yards than Najee Harris had these last 3 years because they're just in a better situation to run the ball. But I do think that I think the Steelers did make a mistake in not giving him the $6.7 million fifth year option, because then it's not a question. Then it's like, you know what? That's nothing. That's nothing that you're committing to. That really was like in the salary cap question. And now this is not a question that you have to answer. Whereas if you let Najee Harris go next year, guess what? Now you got to reinvest at the running back position. You're not sure what you're getting there. And I think that can distract from all the other things that might be really important, like drafting another cornerback to pair with Joey Porter long-term, or drafting another defensive lineman to pair with Keanu Benton long-term if Marvin Leal doesn't work out. Or I think there's a lot of other things they could spend it on than spend their time on and running back, simply by keeping a guy that I think can be very good for the next 3 years.
My take on this, and Chris, that what you just said was the conversation that we had yesterday where we both agreed. I thought it was going to play out with them picking up the 5th year option, getting that year out of him, and then they let him walk and move on. Because if you look at like Ramondre Stevenson's contract, I don't want to use that as the benchmark every time for Najee Harris, but assuming he gets that or clears that, you're talking about him being a top 6 paid running back in the NFL. And I would not pay Najee Harris as a top 6 running back in the NFL. The reason being that I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. And I think that they can find similar production to that for cheaper. Now, I will say this as well. You mentioned his situation. I do think the biggest thing about this to me is it's unfortunate timing of this all happening with getting the offensive line into place because of mismanagement early in Najee's career by using a first-round pick on him when they should not have used the first-round pick on a running back with the state of the offensive line at the time. And really not being able to build that offensive line until later in his Steelers tenure, to the point now where it's like, yeah, you got 1 year where you hope the offensive line now is complete and you got Najee Harris for 1 more year. Again, to me, it should have been 2 because I would have picked up the 5th year option. But that's the biggest thing to me is I just think it's unfortunate timing of finally getting the offensive line into place this late into his Steelers tenure. And I say this late because it's not necessarily, it didn't have to be late, but it is. He's got 1 year left here, and then I think he walks after the season.
Let me ask you this, Smitty. You talked about, being okay with just letting him go. What if Najee Harris rushes for 1,400 yards, 1,500 yards this season because of the new offensive line and gets like 10 touchdowns and is a huge part of this offense? Would that change your mind at all? Or would you say, hey, you know what? Spin to win. We're getting another one next year, cheaper somewhere else?
I would want him back at a number lower than being top 5. Like I'd still like $8.5 million per season would probably be my max.
Okay.
Yeah, I think honestly, him having a good year makes it less likely that he's back.
Yeah,
because then other teams are going to want him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that in that scenario, I don't think there'd be any way that he would come back.
I mean, that type of production on top of, again, we like bring durability into this conversation. The dude doesn't miss time. Like he is that if nothing else, he is dependable.
I believe in the idea of, look, you need the offensive line to help your quarterback. Spending money on the offensive line helps more than just the running game. Like if you have a dominant offensive line, that helps your entire offense. And Chris, you and I have talked about how I think an offensive line can be a tone setter for the entire team. You can't spend the money everywhere. You can't spend the draft capital everywhere. I would rather roll with 5 first-round picks across the offensive line and just play undrafted running backs all the time. Like I'd be totally cool with that. Like I think it's a position where honestly, I think the Steelers can get 80% of what Najee Harris has done for them the last 3 years from the waiver wire. Maybe not the durability, but the production. Like If they have a good offensive line, they can get that with anybody. If you don't have the good offensive line, then even if you have Najee Harris, you're probably not going to be good. The Steelers' running game has not been great the last 3 years. It's been average.
I'd say this, though. What does the quarterback situation look like there? Because, you know, if I have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, one of those guys, yeah, I might not care. But if my game is predicated on if I'm on running the football and possessing the football while I run the football, I might be scared to give it to a lot of these undrafted guys because they might not protect the football well. And if they do protect the football well, they might not be fast or quick enough to hit that. And that's where I come at this is Najee Harris is also very sure-handed with the football. Like I think it took him until the Chiefs playoff game before he even fumbled once when he was with the Steelers. So I look at that part of it. And again, I think part of this is swayed by, I remember Le'Veon Bell being in Pittsburgh. I remember when he wasn't and the impact of it. And I was like, there's a direct correlation between not fumbling ever to fumbling all the time and the impact that it caused. Heck, when Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams were out of the 2015-2016 playoffs, it was a fumble by one of those undrafted guys in a key spot that lost them their game against the eventual Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos. That's why I push back against the idea that running back is just not a value. Don't invest in it. Don't overinvest in it. Don't give your top 10 pick for him. I do think there's some circumstances where a first round pick for him, like Smitty, I still think Najee Harris was the right pick for the Steelers in the first round. If they go and get Creed Humphrey instead of Pat Freiermuth in the second round, which is where Humphrey
20 guys would have been a better pick for them there. 20 guys.
I think that Najee Harris is a big part of why they've stayed relevant the last few years. Now, certainly you could argue, hey, you know, maybe they could have benefited from being worse, but like there were several games his rookie year and his second and this past year where he kicked in and without his effort, fighting through bad offensive line play, bad offense, no quarterback play. I think the Steelers don't make the playoffs in any of these past 3 years. And now you're arguing maybe, well, that would be better because they need to get higher draft picks, but that's, I think, his value. And that's why I think Najee Harris still brings it to the table.
The guy we're talking about setting the market, Ramondre Stevenson, was picked in the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
You could have had him 4 rounds later.
Yeah, but I think that the Patriots situation, I think also
offensive line is probably one of the very few out there that's just as bad as the Steelers.
Right, but I also think that I think also he didn't have to go through some of the things that Najee went through his rookie year, and that's where I think that sure you can stumble onto a 4th round pick, but they tried stumbling onto 4th round picks like Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, and none of those worked. And we can use that example. You know what? You don't have to draft wide receivers in the 1st round. Why? Because you can get Antonio Brown and Hines Ward and Mike Wallace.
Yeah, but it happens at running back way more than it happens at other places.
I hear that there's times that it happens at running, but there's also times that the Steelers completely miss at it. And that's all I'm saying is you got one. You don't have to pay him $20 million. You have to pay him $12 million. Say, hey, I think 8.5 is the right money, Smitty. You give him 8.5, keep him for 2-3 years, and then see where he is at that point. And then you have a sure thing knowing what you got there. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I think you get Jaylen Warren for less than that, and I think Jaylen Warren's a better player. So, I mean, I
think Jaylen is better when no one's looking at him. When everyone's looking at it, like you look at some of the games when he had to be a tough mutter, and it was like he was running into the teeth of defense.
He's not a better player in the mud. I will agree with that. But he did not do well in that slop in Baltimore this year. Overall, if I had to pick between the two, I want to have. If you look at the Steelers' 2 running backs, you say I can only have one of these 2 guys long term. I want Jaylen Warren. He's a better receiver. He's a better pass blocker. He's a better runner.
He's a better runner. I think that he's a better runner in open space. I think that when you want to play the type of football the Steelers are playing, you need Najee Harris.
You need another big guy to put with him. Yes, absolutely. But
the thing is, with the cap
one of those 2, I would totally pick Warren.
Why didn't we lead with this topic?
The thing is, with the cap hits too, you're going to get Warren plus another back for what Najee Harris is going to get paid.
And I agree with that. That part, like the value really works there. Like if you're telling me keep Najee Harris, lose Jaylen Warren, and have to take another shot at finding another Jaylen Warren, that's a different story. Because now if you're telling me I could keep Jaylen Warren, and then we could try to pair another guy with him. And so that way, whoever you are getting in the second, third, fourth round or signing for not that much
that's the
money
other thing. You got to have two. Like, that's the other reason why I think, like, the running back. I mean, Najee Harris is a rare running back in that he's been very healthy. I don't know how much I would bet on that to continue forever. Like, may just be a matter of time. But, like, I think you got to have two. So that makes every one less than, like, nobody except for the Steelers is like, got to have two starting quarterbacks, but you got to have two starting running backs. And so you can't pay either of them all that much money or you're going to spend too much at the position. Like, I don't know. I think building with the offensive line and if you got to sacrifice at running back, I think is the way to go to me. I'd much rather spend the money and spend the draft capital on the line and not worry too much about who's running the ball.
I feel like that random girl in the meme that we all know, but we don't know what her name is. Why not both? And that's just get me the offensive line and a good
salary cap. You can't always have both. It's a finite amount of money you can spend. Like I would, and honestly, I mean, quarterbacks obviously more important than all of it. So
agree. And then here's the other thing: you get you get a top of the line quarterback that you're paying for. A lot of this becomes moot. And then I'm like, all right, get whatever you got to get in these other places, protect the quarterback, and then worry about running back. But I think particularly where the Steelers are right now, you want both.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's a fair take to have. Also, I wanted to mention, because this was from Hayden Bishop as well, he also tweeted at us, and I liked this a lot. Who would win in a 7-on-7 flag football game between the Steelers Now crew and Post Gazette crew?
Steelers Now crew doesn't have 7 people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you guys have 7 people?
We might have to.
We can't.
It's got to be
on the floor.
Sports now. We got to bring in
field me, Zach, Derek, Nick, Ed Thompson. Man, Ed's had a knee replacement. I don't think he's contributing a whole lot to that. Like, we're not. We're gonna get decimated.
Yeah, we might have to borrow. We might have to borrow from some other Pittsburgh Now affiliates.
We're just gonna beat you with attrition.
I don't even know. Like, I mean, look. Even if I look around the Pittsburgh Now landscape here, like I'm not liking our chances personally.
Listen, like
personally, listen, me, Smitty, and Nick and Derek is a solid core. But we literally do not have enough to field a lineup. And also, if you take a look at me, Smitty, and Nick, 7-on-7 ain't exactly our game. All right. We would like there to be some blocking involved if we're going to maximize our chances.
It's funny that you just brought that up, because when I played like youth football, first day of practice was always people deciding which position they wanted to try to play. So the coaches were like, anybody that wants to try to be a running back, come over to this group. I walked over there and they were like, no. go over with the offensive lineman.
Listen, I had a similar thing when I was at Alderdice. I was like, I'm gonna be a tight end. I ran one day the tight end drills. I was like, I'm gonna be a lineman, because I was just, that's not my. I am not a runner.
Maybe my coaches were looking out for me and like, hey, if this kid is really good, he ain't gonna get a payday at running back.
Yeah, they were just protecting your future earnings by not letting you play running back.
I will say, I do think the main way the Post Gazette would just win would be, one, if you guys found your 7, we would just send out hordes of 7s, because we could just keep throwing out people. We'd send out like me, Noah Hiles, Jason Maskey also. I'm pretty sure he's
a good athlete.
Right. Like, I could just throw it up to him. Ray Fittipaldo's a former college athlete. We could throw him in there. Like, and then when those guys get tired, we'll have replacements, or if like our knees give out. So that's how we'll beat Pittsburgh Steelers.
I want this said on the record. I want Noah Hiles in one-on-one drills, like wide receiver DB drills.
Let's go. That'd be amazing.
I'm putting it out there. This has been a lot of fun. Any closing thoughts?
Brian Batko would get numbers.
Oh, Brian Batko would torch us all. We don't. I mean, Derek can maybe run with him, but that's our only shot.
Is Batko also really good at hoops?
Yes.
He gets buckets.
Okay. Yeah, we were talking about having like a 3-point contest one time, and somebody said that
he would win.
Okay, I just want to throw this out there as well. Back in high school during Winter Olympics, we always had a 3-point competition. I'm the one that represented my grade, so
okay,
I can get buckets from the outside. Now, do I go in the paint? No, but
I always tell this story. One time, this is years ago now, but I was just hooping at an outdoor court, just like, summertime, just getting some work in, trying to get some exercise. And this church team comes along, and all these high schooler kids that are playing, like, hey, can you play with us? We just needed a 10th man. I was like, yeah, sure. So first possession, I get the ball, and 3-pointer, swish, no problem. And the kids are like, he's a shooter. I'm like, that's right, I'm a shooter, yeah. And then the next possession, I get the ball at the top of the key, and I dribble twice. And they're like, he's got no handles. I'm like, I hate you kids. and then I missed the next 3 shots. They're like, he's not a shooter. So I would, if it was a 3-point contest, I would not be who I'd send out to represent the Post Gazette.
There we go. Great stuff. Like I said, had a lot of fun on this episode. Great conversation. Chris, tell the people they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critique. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can find me at the Pittsburgh Post Gazette's podcasting channel, as well as the Locked On Steelers podcasting channel on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like those videos, just like you like this video. Subscribe to those channels like you subscribe to this channel to get all of our content. And thank you guys for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Breaking news to close the podcast. The Steelers have claimed defensive tackle Willington Prevalon off waivers from the Atlanta Falcons.
Is it Sir Willington Prevalon?
It would be great if it was.
It sounds like he has a mustache that he's just always doing.
Someone mad-libs that name. He is a Rutgers grad. And
Rutgers.
That's all I got. It was with the Bucks and the Cowboys and the Falcons before.
Yeah, he definitely just sounds like he has a curled mustache to me.
The Steelers did this last year too. They signed that cornerback out of the USFL named Neville Clark. Neville Clark and Willington Prevalon need to get together for tea in the afternoon.
We just found our 6th and 7th men.
Complain about the Monarchy
Steelers now 6th and 7th men. Neville Clark.
There you go. He just recruit them. It's like William Shakespeare.
Alan,
former Steelers great William Shakespeare. There you go.
Alan, other than getting your hand in the dirt at this 7-on-7, where can the people find you?
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell for notifications. And have a good weekend.
There we go. Also, follow us on TikTok at Steelers Afternoon Drive. Get your content in 90 seconds or less over there if you are on TikTok. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review over there. Subscribe over there. Do all that good stuff. Search Afternoon Drive. You will find the podcast there. Thanks again to Chris Carter for joining us. Brown Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.